think some of those ones that we covered, again, I'm going to go back to that fish oil, phenomenal. And those 5 basic ones, I think just for everybody is going to be great and really, truly jump up your level of health. Something that you'll actually notice the difference, which is great.
All right. Hello, world, and welcome back to another episode of the Resistance Podcast. I'm Connor.
And I'm Thurston.
This is episode 4, coming to you pre-recorded, Los Angeles, California, July 6th, 2023.
Awesome.
Epic. Today we're going to talk about supplementation.
Yes, yeah, big hot topic. We've been getting a lot of requests for this.
Yes. First of all, Thurston.
Yep.
Why should we supplement? Because I'm just going to play devil's advocate here. I eat a well-rounded diet. I get all the things. So if I'm eating a healthy, balanced diet, why do I need to take any supplements?
Because if I say no, this is going to be the shortest podcast ever. So if we shouldn't take any podcasts or any supplements, then
just
we
make
don't
something
need
up
to.
then. I mean, come on.
We should definitely take podcasts after this one. But yeah, if we don't need to take supplements, it's going to be a very short podcast.
Okay. And so listen on, guys.
No, other than that, I mean, it is kind of funny because sometimes you get these like really broad statements like, oh, you shouldn't take supplements, or you should. But I mean, it's like saying, well, you shouldn't take medicines. I mean, if you have an actual deficiency, let's say like literally scurvy because you didn't get enough vitamin C, well then vitamin C could save your life.
Right.
So it's obviously context matters, but obviously we'll go into it because when you look at supplements, I kind of broadly speaking put it into 2 separate categories. One are like essential nutrients that you need, otherwise, your health will suffer and you could die if you literally don't have what are literally called essential nutrients. So for instance, there's essential fatty acids, so certain types of fats that you absolutely need for the body, that if you don't consume them, you'll die. There's essential amino acids, so certain types of proteins that you absolutely need to take in. And of course, there's vitamins and minerals. So they're all, I put those in the category of the essential nutrients that the body needs. We'll go into that in detail. And then the other category of supplements are ones that can have incredibly good beneficial effects. But if you don't take them, you're not going to die or have any kind of health consequences. But they may be other things that you can take that have really good effects on your health. So that's the way I kind of separate it out in terms of the 2 main categories.
Awesome. Well, let's kind of break or dive into these a little bit deeper. Do you want to start and just kind of talk about essential nutrients and what they are? Yeah.
And this is sort of the overall case, quite frankly, whether or not you should be taking supplements or not, because obviously all these nutrients are available in our foods. So all the essential nutrients we can definitely get them through foods, because otherwise before supplements existed, all we had were food, and we managed to make it for a few million years. Exactly. So of course we can get them in through food. But when you look at the levels of nutrients in the modern day, what the average person takes in and what even the RDA recommendation levels are, you see that on average, people are not consuming enough nutrients. So, and hopefully we can throw this up on the graph if anyone's watching the video, and we'll definitely put a link to it. But there is this sort of graph of all the nutrients and the percentage of people that are lacking in these nutrients. Now, I don't have it here in front of me, but roughly speaking, 60 to 70% of people are going to be deficient in a lot of nutrients. Things like iodine, things like omega-3, vitamin D, magnesium, all these nutrients, most people are actually not consuming enough, even to meet the RDA.
Yeah.
Which brings me on to this point about, so there's obviously, if you're really lacking in some of these nutrients, you're literally going to end up with diseases like scurvy if you don't get enough vitamin C.
Right.
So that was a big deal when people were sailing around the world, and if they didn't have any kind of sources of vitamin C, that was a big problem. But then there's sort of the RDA. Now, there's a lot of people will dispute that the RDAs are way too low. So it's just enough not to get the disease. But definitely nowhere close to optimum levels. And what's interesting is when you study healthy people or healthy populations, their level of nutrients are way, way higher. So I always talk about this book back here, the Nutrition and Physical Degeneration book by Weston A. Price. And he traveled around the world to remote tribes and civilizations that were incredibly healthy, that didn't suffer from all the modern metabolic diseases. And we covered that in the other podcasts. So, but their level of nutrients were way higher, like 10 times the amount of fat-soluble nutrients. So that's like fat-soluble nutrients like vitamin A, D, E, and K, K2 in particular. And then and about 4 times more water-soluble vitamins. So their levels of nutrients were way, way higher. And that would be more close to what I would consider optimum nutrient levels. So when you look at that, you go, okay, wow, most people are not getting in enough nutrients through their diet. And even at that, I would say that the levels should be much higher again for optimum health.
Yeah, I was going to ask why? You know, is it because we're not eating the right foods, or is it that the foods we're eating just don't have the nutrients they used to? Like, are we messing them up, genetically modifying them? Is the soil depleted? What's going on there?
Well, the answer's in the question. It's exactly both of those reasons.
Yeah.
So one, and obviously we covered this before, and we'll continue to cover it, is the modern day diet. About almost 70% of it is ultra-processed food, which is devoid of all these nutrients. So when you eat a more natural diet that's more nutrient dense, obviously your levels of nutrients are going to be much higher. So the type of food, for sure, is a big, big factor. So the first thing I would always recommend when it comes to nutrient levels is obviously reduce the ultra-processed foods dramatically, eat a lot more natural, real foods, and by default, your levels of nutrients are going to go up a lot. So if you go back more towards a traditional diet, your levels of nutrients will be much, much higher. So that's for sure number one. And then number two, because even people that are health conscious, and they do that, they can still be lacking a lot of nutrients because of the second point that you brought up there, which is the quality of food. Because even if you eat like really good food, vegetables, fruits, proteins, fish, all these things, a lot of these things, even like soil depletion, because they're not properly doing crop rotation. So the soil becomes depleted of certain minerals, for instance, like we probably don't get as much magnesium as we used to. So that's a big factor because obviously the way the world works, a lot of it is driven by economics. So if you're just trying to maximize profits all the time, well, you're not going to take the care to get the proper nutrient density, because if you're going to sell whatever it is, like a carrot or an egg or whatever, people just go, well, that's a carrot and that's cheaper, so I'll get this carrot, or that's an egg and that egg is cheaper, so I'll take this egg, not understanding that, you know, the quality comes into it, and that's a big, big deal. So that's a big problem and a big reason why we don't get in enough nutrients. So even if you're trying to really optimize your nutrient levels, you're eating more of a natural diet, you've cut out a lot of ultra-processed food, you may still be lacking in some nutrients.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is it safe to assume that most Americans are deficient in certain areas?
Yeah, again.
Even if you have a, healthy, well-rounded diet?
Yeah. So, I mean, unless you're literally growing your own food and you're doing, you're absolutely maximizing everything. So going actually back to the type of foods, for instance.
Yeah.
So when you look at people who are, the remote tribes and civilizations, and they had this great nutrient density, they were eating a lot of foods that we don't consume today, even if you're eating a healthy diet.
Oh, interesting.
So, for example, the most nutrient-dense food on the planet is liver.
I knew you were going to say it.
But how many people listening to this actually eat liver? Probably not a lot.
Right.
Now.
Yeah, we don't prioritize organ meats anymore.
Exactly.
And it used to be like a prized thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Because even in this country, I mean, the Native Americans, they would have actually, when they hunted, the first thing they would have done is eat the organs and some of the fat. And they actually would have left the lean meats to the scavengers.
So weird.
Whereas now you go in and it's always the lean meats because it's, easier to cut. It's more tender, like a fillet or a sirloin or New York steak or whatever. but they're not as nutrient dense as, of course, as the organs. Whereas if you eat, the liver, the kidneys, the brain, the spleen, all these things, they're incredibly nutrient dense. But of course, they're not as delicious. So
interesting.
That's a big, big factor. So they would have, in all these other, remote tribe civilizations, they prized these things, and even things like cod liver oil. That was a big thing that they would have been into because of the nutrient density. A lot of vitamin A, D, and some EPA and DHA.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what are the specific nutrients in the organ meats that we're needing?
Yeah, so
I know there's a lot. We maybe can't go into all of them, but
huge amounts. But yeah, liver is going to have a huge amount of vitamin A and really good absorbable vitamin A. So that's another thing. Or the types,
talk about,
we'll go into that.
Bioavailability.
Bioavailability. Yeah. So yeah, these are very bioavailable nutrients. But a lot of vitamin A. You're going to get a lot of iron in there as well. Really good protein, B vitamins. So even if, again, hopefully we can bring up a little chart and show what the liver nutrient levels are compared to even just normal meat. Huge difference. Colossal differences. So that's where you're going to get, and also shellfish is brilliant. Things like oysters and clams. Again, iron levels through the roof. You're going to get zinc, really high in zinc. So oysters are considered an aphrodisiac. A lot of the reason because the huge amounts of zinc, again, very absorbable.
What does zinc go on to do?
Well, zinc is brilliant for hormones, for testosterone in particular.
That's what I was getting at, yeah.
But also brilliant for your immune system, brilliant for skin, hair, nails. So really good all across the board, very good nutrients. So they're the type of things that are, again, shellfish, organ meats, really nutrient-dense foods. But again, a lot of people just don't consume these type of foods anymore. So that's the big thing. So yeah, the type of food. Now, if you're really into all that and you do consume that, and just as a by the way, I know we're talking about supplements today, but I love to get this. I get this ground meat that has these organ meats mixed in.
Yeah.
So there's a certain percentage of liver, a certain amount of kidney, certain amount of heart, and then the rest is just the normal.
That's good because a lot of people just don't have the palate.
Yeah,
I really tried. I went down like this. I got super focused. I was like, I want to eat liver every day, and I did for a couple of weeks, but eventually it's not my thing.
Yeah.
So I need to try the ground thing. I know we talked about it.
Yeah, because it's only, it's still about 80% normal, but then you get all these organ meats, roughly the other 20%. And that way you don't even taste it.
Yeah.
So you make it up and flavor it and put on your herbs and spices and stuff. And
how many ounces of organ meat do you think we should be taking in a day? Or I guess specifically we can just talk about liver because it's probably the...
Well, if you could get the equivalent to, even 1 ounce would be incredible nutrient density. You wouldn't even need that every day. So you'd only need a very small amount. So even per week, you'd need only maybe 2 or 3 ounces of organ meats a week, and you're going to get incredible levels. Great thing about fat-soluble nutrients is they store in the body. So you don't need to take them every single day.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of other nutrients, you need to take them more frequently to get the benefit from them. But again, going back to the bigger picture, most people don't get in enough of even the RDA.
Got it.
And then for optimum health, we're nowhere close to that. And by sure, the first thing you should do is reduce the ultra-processed food, more natural foods, if you can, in some shape or form. Now, I don't know if people are going to be willing to do this. But again, there are smart ways to do it. Because even some things like you can get cured meats. And again, if it's natural and grass-fed and good quality, but I think it's Braunschweiger and liverwurst, these types of things, they'll have a certain amount of organ meats in there. And again, you don't really taste it. So there are ways to consume it where you don't taste it. But for most people, I think that starts to kind of go into a good case for taking food supplements.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a need. Most people aren't getting enough, organ meats or whatever, or high quality foods. And there's just certain limitations in the foods that are accessible to us. So what are some of these essential nutrients that we can be taking in supplement form to enhance our health overall?
Okay, yeah. Well, again, of course, it's going to be different for everybody. And if you really wanted to know, you'd get blood tests and you'd find out what your levels are, and then you'll know which ones you really need. But having said all that, for the average person, I'll give you my top 5, okay?
Sure.
And ones that I would even take myself and recommend for like 90.
Yeah, let's go through them. Tell us what they do, and that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So the first one, I'm definitely, if you could only ever take one supplement or nutrient, the absolute no question would be the fish oil or omega-3.
Okay.
And more specifically, what's called EPA and DHA. Now, please don't tell me to, because it's these big long words, and I'm not going to.
Oh, yeah. You can abbreviate. That's fine.
Yeah. So.
Do we have some right here?
That's the one.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there we go.
If you're watching, there it is. If you're not, well, you're hearing about it.
Yeah. So that's one that I take all the time myself, and it's the first supplement that I recommend pretty much for everybody. So fish oil, and everybody hears about fish oil, omega-3, and this has been heavily researched. I mean, there's tens of thousands of really good studies. Since the mid-'80s, there's been masses of studies on EPA and DHA. And fish oil is just so good for all-round metabolic health. Incredible. So it works, and there's a few different mechanistic aspects to it. I mean, the first thing, it makes the blood less sticky. So it's almost like taking aspirin or low-dose aspirin. So you get the benefits of that without the side effects, which is brilliant. Another amazing benefit of taking fish oil is it reduces inflammation in the body. And that's a huge thing that has a knock-on effect on everything.
Yeah.
So even when they look at things, for instance, like all-around mortality, one of the studies, for instance, said it reduced it by 25%, and that's just over a 5-year span, which is pretty amazing.
I was going to say, those two things alone, I'm like, wow, that sounds like it'd be really good for heart health.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, they use it, for instance, and there's even like a pharmaceutical drug, which is just fish oil.
Interesting.
And it's a certain amounts of EPA and DHA, and that's incredibly good for reducing triglycerides, for instance. I mean, dramatic reductions in triglycerides.
Interesting.
So even people who are on statins, they might add in fish oil or even the medical version of it to reduce their triglycerides further if they're not getting enough results from the statins or whatever.
Yeah. Does it helps with inflammation? Is that going to help with like workout recovery as well?
Oh, yes.
Yes,
absolutely. Okay. And there's really good studies to show that. So from the point of view of working out, and so one of the things, for instance, it increases your resting metabolic rate in one of the studies by 14%. That's huge.
How much do you have to take?
I think in the study it was only about 3 grams of EPA DHA. That's generally the amount that I would recommend for most people. Again, check with your doctor. This is not medical advice.
14%
by taking fish oil. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. You see, again, the mechanism is where, for instance, in all the cells, the structure of it becomes much more subtle, and it just allows, it's like oil in an engine. It's a bit of an oversimplification, but it just makes everything flow and work way better on a cellular level. So it really is phenomenal.
I've actually never supplemented fish oil.
Oh my gosh.
I really want to now.
Oh wow, yeah.
I really want to now.
Now you absolutely can get enough through eating fish, but you need to be eating a lot of fish. Minimum
fatty fish like salmon and
salmon, mackerel, herring, sardines are the main fatty fish. Now again, most people I know just don't eat much fish.
Or enough of it, or
and you'd need to take a minimum of 1 pound a week of fatty fish to really kind of reach those
Salmon's
levels.
Pretty expensive, you know.
But I mean, so the fish oil is just like head and shoulders above the rest from a health perspective. It's even brilliant for the brain health as well. There's really good research to show that it's very good as an antidepressant, very good for all cognitive ability. Now there's still a lot that we're researching to find out more about the mechanism, the difference between EPA and DHA, because they used to say, oh, EPA is great for the body, DHA is great for the brain, but there's a huge overlap. I think both are great all around. But, oh wow, I mean, you're going to, like say for instance, when you work out, your recovery is going to be much faster, much better. In the research, it even shows that you gain more muscle when you take the fish oil.
Crazy.
I think it was like a 4% increase in muscle mass compared to the placebo. So much better muscle gain, much better muscle recovery, less post-exercise muscle soreness. So inflammation is good. Like, you need inflammation to recover. But the problem is we have this sort of chronic low-grade inflammation all the time.
Right.
Now, fish oil just helps that whole process so that you'll get a good inflammation response, but then it'll come back down again. So you get the healing process, and just overall, you're just going to recover much, much better.
That's
so
great.
Especially when we do the resistance training at the studio, for beginners, and people will experience it. Some people, oh my God, they will have so much, and they'll go relatively light, but there's so much inflammation in their body that they're going to feel sore for a week afterwards.
Yeah.
Other people will recover really quick, but definitely the fish oil.
Okay, didn't you say that you took a ton of this at one stage in life and that you stopped feeling pain?
Yeah,
I know it's a little extreme here, but
yeah, definitely don't try this at home. But yeah, at one point, because when you look at the research of like omega-6 is part of the pathway where it goes from linoleic acid, GGLA, DGLA, arachidonic acid, and then it goes down these pathways, COX-1, COX-2 pathways, and it creates pain and inflammation. So I eliminated completely, as much as I could, omega-6 from the diet, and I jumped up the omega-3, because even the omega-3 reduces the pain and inflammation process of the omega-6 by 33%, but then also has other anti-inflammatory effects. And I was on, 20 grams, which is a lot of EPA, DHA. But it was ridiculous where you couldn't feel, like I could never, the way after you train, you almost want a bit of muscle soreness because you feel like, oh, I worked out. But I couldn't even get that. And I remember I was working with this.
So dumb.
I was working with this soccer team, and I was putting workout machines in there when we were working with them, and I was just trying to fix a machine, and I had a spanner, and I was tightening it, and it slipped and hit my head, and it was an unusually hot day in Ireland. We don't get many hot days. But it hit my head, and I thought I was just sweating. I was like, oh, and I kept working.
Oh, my God.
And the guys came back in from practice, and they're like, Thurston, yeah, you got blood all over your face? I was like, oh, shoot. Now, okay, it does help. It makes it easier to bleed because you have thinner blood.
Thinning, yeah.
But I just didn't feel pain. It was weird. I'd stub my toe, and I'm waiting for that, like, it wouldn't happen. So it definitely has a huge reduction in terms of pain and inflammation.
That's like top tier Thurston lore. I love it. You gave some to Ben today because he was complaining about a really bad sunburn.
Yeah.
Is that for the same reason?
Yeah,
inflammation
reduce your pain and inflammation. Yeah,
crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah, so fish oil, absolutely, always my number one go-to. It really is fantastic. Now, in terms of amounts to take of EPA and DHA, roughly speaking, I would recommend, and a lot of the research and studies, it ranges, but about 3 grams a day is a good amount to go for. And that's a combination of EPA, DHA. Because a lot of the time, and this is a big thing to understand when it comes to supplements, is that the type and the amount are very important. Because, I take fish oil. Okay, how many do you take? I just take 1 a day. And they're taking a low dose where it's only like maybe not even half a gram. And then clinically, you're not going to get much of a result with that. So you definitely want to take a good quality one that's high in EPA and DHA. Now you will see, because omega-3, technically you could get omega-3 from, linseed oil or flaxseed oil. And that's what's called linolenic acid. Now linolenic acid, some of it can convert to EPA, DHA, but it's a very small amount. You're not really going to get the full benefits. So you really do need actual EPA and DHA.
Yeah, so for people listening and I guess watching, you may not be able to see that far. This is Vital Nutrients Ultra Pure Fish Oil 700 enteric?
Enteric coating. So enteric coating is something that most people will want. Okay. And the reason is, and anyone who takes fish oil, you'll know this.
I know where you're going with this, yeah.
Yeah, the fish burp.
Yeah.
Right? So, and that's why a lot of people are put off. They will not take just because of that. Now, I'm so into health, I don't care if I, whatever. But you get enteric coating and you will not get the fish burp. So that actually works.
That's great.
That really is good. Yeah, so with this one, I need my glasses for this. Let's see exactly how much EPA and DHA is in this one. So yeah, 720 milligrams of EPA, 480 of DHA. So that's 1.2 grams per 2 capsules. So I would take a minimum of 4 and really 5 capsules to hit that 3 grams, because 1.2 for 2 capsules, that's 2.4 grams if you take 4 capsules. So the 5 capsules will bring you closer to that 3 grams, the magic EPA, DHA.
Do you take this supplement with food or by itself? Does it matter?
I prefer to take those with food.
Okay.
Because it's a type of fat, and I don't know in the research whether it makes much of a difference. But I always feel like you'll absorb most things better with food as part of the digestion process.
Cool.
But because it's enteric coating, I was going to say also, if you eat food afterwards, you're less likely to get that fish burp, but you don't need to worry about it if it's not. One other thing that I will say about fish oil, try and get good quality one, and ideally the triglyceride form. So that says triglyceride form. So that's more natural, and the absorption rate's a little bit better.
Awesome.
So do try to get good quality fish oil, because the last thing you want is rancid oils of any shape or form going into your system. So I always keep them in the fridge.
Oh, okay.
And try to get them fresh and good quality. Cool. So I wouldn't skimp on fish oil. So that's the type of thing. Some things are ubiquitous and it's fine, but fish oil, absolutely good quality. But it's going to have a tremendous effect of your overall metabolic health, incredible for circulation, incredible for reducing pain, inflammation, amazing for your brain, for your mood levels, brilliant for muscle recovery, brilliant for increasing muscle. So yeah, all around great for reducing triglycerides. I believe it increases your HDL. So all around metabolic health, phenomenal.
Awesome.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Take your fish oil.
Yeah, so after that, then there's a few other nutrients that I would take. The next one would probably be magnesium.
Okay.
It seems to be that's another one that most people are deficient in, and it's hard to get in through the food. Green leafy veg is higher in magnesium. Funny enough, chocolate, without the sugar, the real cocoa, very high in magnesium as well. But other than that, very hard to get in the full amounts of magnesium. Most people don't get in enough.
And there's different kinds of magnesium, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there sure is.
Which one should we be prioritizing?
So magnesium, can come in different forms. Now, the magnesium that I recommend is what's called a chelated form. Now, chelated means they add it to an amino acid, like a protein, so that you absorb it. Because if it's just like, for instance, magnesium oxide, the absorption rate is awful. Like you're talking 4%. You may as well not take it. Now, it is good as a diuretic.
I was just going to say that. Is that just because your body's not processing it, so it's just...
I think the mechanism is slightly different from that, but you're not absorbing it, and it does help. Like if you're constipated, magnesium oxide is your friend. It's literally sold as a diuretic. So that's fine, but if you, from the point of view of getting in the magnesium, the nutrient into your cells, which is so important for metabolic health, really important, then you want one that you actually absorb. So, I mean, citrate is better, but I love the chelated form. The one that I have is magnesium glycinate.
Okay.
So that's really, really good. And the absorption rate's much, much better. And I obviously you can get it in capsules. I like to take things in powder form a lot if I can, because then you're not just swallowing loads and loads of pills. You just mix it in, you drink it, it's easy, and that's pretty cool.
Can you talk a little bit about the function of magnesium in the body?
Yeah.
Why it's important?
Yeah, well, I mean, almost every cell needs magnesium for really good metabolic health, and it's linked to all sorts of health benefits. Even from muscle cramping, it can kind of help. Calcium kind of tends to contract the muscle. Magnesium helps to relax it. So again, very good for, because again, if everything's too tight, that's not great even from a metabolic health perspective. So that's one of really good function. But again, even for just general metabolism, you're going to need magnesium. So it's just one of those like really sort of basic minerals that we need for so many things to do with health. So, and I would recommend, roughly speaking, about 200 to 300 milligrams. Now, you got to watch for the actual amount of magnesium that you're going to absorb versus just how much you're taking.
Yeah.
There's a big difference. So that's definitely the next one that I would go for is magnesium after the fish oil.
Yeah. And I know like we have element drinks. Those are really popular right now. It's magnesium, sodium, potassium. Is something like that enough? Is that the kind of magnesium we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, but there's only a very small amount of magnesium in that. I love element, obviously, but, sodium could be a gram, but I think magnesium, I should look at the label, but I think it's only like maybe 60 milligrams.
Okay, so it's more so prioritizing the sodium intake.
Yeah, but it's good because there is this sort of, when you're taking minerals, it's good to take take them combined like that. There's a bit of a synergy effect, so I guess that's why they put them in there. But I would go beyond that in general for health. So this would be, I mean, these are the type of things I would take instead of taking a multivitamin. So fish oil, magnesium, and then after that, the other nutrients I like to take is K2.
Yes.
So K2 is more of a, funnily enough, going back to the Weston A. Price book, he used to go on and on about in these traditional remote tribe civilizations where their health was incredible. They didn't have any of the modern metabolic diseases that we have, really super healthy. And he called this thing, because he couldn't quite figure out what it was, but he knew there were some special nutrients in certain foods. He called it Activator X.
Really?
Yeah. And he said you got to have, and it was in things like really good grass-fed butter and certain kind of nutrients like that. Or certain foods.
Is it really high in fermented foods as well?
It can be. So, for instance,
It's like another thing we don't eat a lot of. In American culture, at least.
So in Japan, there was this really interesting anomaly where everybody in East Japan was much healthier than in West Japan, and largely speaking, they were all very similar. So what was going on? But in a cultural way, everyone in East Japan used to eat natto, which was like a fermented soy, which was super high in K2, which was interesting. So, and that was, again, much, much lower levels in terms of cardiovascular disease and all these things. So K2 is really good, in particular, for getting calcium into the cells where it's meant to be. So calcium is notoriously difficult to break down. And the things that you need are we know about vitamin D, D3 in particular, which is going to be next on the list.
Yeah, I thought it might be.
So that's really good for helping you absorb calcium. But K2 in particular, it's almost like the control center that makes sure it goes to where it needs to be. So again, very good for overall metabolic health. And
because we don't want calcium sitting in our arteries.
We definitely don't want it sitting there or getting into our joints or anything like that. So yeah, super, super important. So K2, phenomenal for that. And great for all around, again, very good for health. So yeah, the K2, magnesium, and then the D3, they're all the ones that I kind of will sort of group together for incredible metabolic health.
Do you pair your K2 with D3? I know a lot of supplements are sold like that.
Yeah. Well, I don't, because so it just depends on what you're taking all around. But I like to take cod liver oil. And that has vitamin A and D, and they seem to work together, and you need the right ratio. So if you just increase D without the A or whatever, so it's good to kind of take them both. So I do like to take it in the cod liver oil form. But then there's also my other supplement that I love to take is a supplement called megaquinone, and that has K2, magnesium, and zinc all in the one. Which is really cool. So the 3 of my top 5 is all in the one supplement.
Interesting.
And that's a really neat one to take. So if I'm taking that, then I don't need to take the magnesium powder. I don't need to take a separate zinc, and so on. So that's a really good one.
I derailed you a little bit. I apologize.
No problem.
Keep going with D.
Yeah, well, vitamin D, it's been talked about, ad litem, and you can see so much stuff. So I don't want to go too deep into it. But again, super important. Vitamin D is a bit of a super hormone, even though it's called a vitamin. It has incredible benefits health-wise all across the board. Now, if you ask me what's the best way to take vitamin D, I'm going to say the sun.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So I know everyone's scared of the sun. They all think they're going to die like vampires or whatever. But vitamin D, sun exposure is really good. And you get all these other benefits from it as well. But it has to be like, if you put on a full block and go out, you're not getting vitamin D. You actually need to get some sun. Of course, don't burn yourself, all that. And be careful, skin types, you got to look at all that. But having said all that, I'm a big believer. It's a little bit like grass. If you get too much sun, it'll burn. Not enough sun, and it's not great either. If you put something out on the lawn and you take it up and it's all dead because there's not enough sun. You know, oversimplification, but I feel like that as humans, we need a certain amount.
We'll get a dermatologist review on that statement.
Okay, yeah. Well, no, it's anyone into skin, they're going to be terrified of the sun. So, but there is that amazing process of getting it that way, and then
it's good for your immune system. And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah,
I know there's so much information about.
There sure is, yeah. I mean, and again, brilliant for immune system. And why do we get colds and flus more so in the winter than the summer? Largely to do with our vitamin D levels are lower. So absolutely incredible for your immune system. And even with things like COVID, there was lots of really good research showing that vitamin D really did help the outcome when it comes to anything. But that's just one of those. But yeah, not allowed to say anything else is good for health or immune system. But yeah, look, it really is for sure. Essential. Now, the one thing I would caution on, some people take super high doses of vitamin D. Yeah. And I'm not so sure about that. I would just take a reasonable amount.
Isn't it like the recommended like 1,000 IU a day?
I should know this, but I mean, I would be recommending, because a lot of them are like 5,000 or 10,000, and I certainly wouldn't be taking that on a long-term basis.
Yeah.
Maybe short-term if you absolutely were deficient in it or something. But I wouldn't go overboard.
I think Ben's looking it up.
Okay. So, you know, you want to, it's always this U curve where, you know, you don't want too much, too little, too much. There's just the kind of sweet spot. So, yeah, I would definitely would make sure you're getting enough of that in there.
Like 400
IUs for the RDA. But again, is RDA optimum?
Right.
So yeah, some of these supplements are 5,000 or 10,000, and again, it's out of balance with everything else. I'm a little wary about that. That's why, you know, I do like to take the cod liver oil for that, because I get the vitamin A and D. It's a natural, almost food, and it's been taken for hundreds of years. Again, all these super healthy people prized it, would always give it to people, especially for mothers that are going to have kids and all these types of things. So yeah, I definitely, vitamin D is going to be right up there. So that's 4 out of the 5, and I think there's just one more. Or so did you have anything else on that?
No. Talk about your last one, and then I will ask my next question.
Sure.
Your final essential.
And then the last one's going to be, of my top 5, is going to be zinc.
Okay.
So zinc, again, brilliant for immune system, brilliant for hair, skin, nails, all that sort of thing. Very good for hormones, particular testosterone, which is important both for male and female.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize
it's only going to optimize, like we should all have optimal hormones, whatever that is for us. So as males, we want optimum estrogen. Women want optimum testosterone. Obviously, they're going to be in different amounts.
Right.
So because some people are afraid, oh my God, I'm going to, you know, it's going to mess up my hormones or something. No, it's just going to optimize those levels. And again, very good for mood levels, focus, concentration, all that sort of thing. So zinc, very, very good. And again, a lot of these things work synergistically. So zinc and magnesium work well together. So that would be my top 5. And I much prefer focusing in on those ones and really getting good quality, get the right amounts in. Rather than taking like a multivitamin.
Well, there you blew my next question. My next question is why not just take a multivitamin?
Okay.
Because it has everything in it. What's wrong with that?
So, few things. Most multivitamins, not all, but the vast majority, so the average one that you're going to get, you just go into a store, pick up a multivitamin, is really poor quality. So the first thing I always look for when I look through a multivitamin, again, I'll look for the quality. So if I see magnesium oxide, I'm going to put it back on the shelf and never go near that brand again.
It's not doing what we need magnesium to do.
It's so wrong, and it's just nonsense. And obviously they know nothing about anything, and they're just looking to make a buck. So That's the first thing I look for. If it's magnesium oxide, unless it's literally saying this is a diuretic and this is why you're taking it, then don't touch it, because that's rubbish. And then as you go through all the other ones again, you'll see it's the cheapest forms of these nutrients, because they got to put in like so many things and then sell it and try and make a profit and all that sort of thing. So they're not going to be focused in on the quality. So that's a big, big problem. So multivitamins, yeah, it's just, I'm sure there are some good ones. Definitely some are better than others. But I just think there's a lot of things that are in there that you probably don't need to take, that you're not deficient in, and you get plenty of. So it's a little bit of a waste of money. And again, the quality is going to suffer a lot. So there is exceptions, but on the whole, I'm generally will steer people away from multivitamins. And that's where you see these big studies, oh, multivitamins don't work. But probably because it's really bad quality, you're not even absorbing. So if you get magnesium oxide and you're only getting 4%, well, obviously it's not going to do anything for you. And then sometimes you can even things can do more harm than good. There's all sorts of fillers and weird things going in there. Calcium is a weird one as well, where I try to avoid calcium supplementation.
I was just going to ask that. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, because calcium is notoriously difficult to break down and absorb.
Exactly.
Really hard. And if you start taking chunks of calcium, like in a supplement, that's where you're going to end up, where if it's not broken down and absorbed properly, you can end up in places where you do not want it.
Yeah, and obviously people are taking it because they want to have, good bone health.
And
all
all
it's
that
like,
sort of thing.
I feel like resistance training and exercise is probably the best intervention for that anyways.
Yeah. Now, of course, you need calcium, so, but I prefer to take it in through food and then focus on the K2 and the vitamin D3.
To make sure it's getting where it needs to go.
That's going to help then absorb it and make sure it goes in the right place.
Yeah.
So that, I think, overall is a much, much better strategy.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I don't go near the multivitamins. So that's where I kind of go for the food, for that stuff, and then just work on the most important nutrients that are going to have the greatest effect on your overall health.
Awesome. Would you put, obviously it's essentials in the name, but essential amino acids, would you put that in this category of essential nutrients to take, or would you kind of separate that into something different?
So,
because obviously we're eating protein, we're eating our meats, so we're getting them, but
yeah,
what are your early thoughts on that?
Yeah, okay, so protein, again, is absolutely essential. And so protein is made up of what's called amino acids. So they're the building blocks of protein. And there's hundreds of different amino acids. Now, the body has to take in what's called essential amino acids. And there are 8 essential amino acids. So they're ones that we absolutely have to take in, because we can make all the other ones once we have those essential amino acids in there. So these are ones that, like, literally if you had one essential amino acid, tryptophan, isoleucine, lysine, whatever, if one of those was completely absent, you'd die.
Yeah.
And if they're very low in short supply, your health will suffer. So amino acids, you absolutely need to get in your 8 essential amino acids. And they're going to be in a lot of foods and in different ratios.
And those are essential. They're not made in the body. Is that right?
Yeah.
The other amino acids are?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's not a worry. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So those 8 essential amino acids, you want to kind of optimize that. And protein is something that we don't consume enough of. So, but increasing your protein intake, and you're getting up to maybe 3/4 to a gram of protein per pound of body weight, then you're pretty much going to be covered from a health point of view. Now, if you really want to get into optimizing and you're an athlete or you want to optimize muscle building, then you probably want to pay even more attention to the quality of amino acids along with the quantity. So there's what's called complete and incomplete proteins, and there's all these different scales, and there's always new ones coming out of which is the most absorbable and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the ratios.
Well, let's go into it a little bit, because I feel like, especially in gym culture, when you say, let's talk about supplements, I think protein, and especially protein powder, is probably the first on people's minds.
Yeah.
So should we be supplementing it? Do we need to? And also let's get into like what are the best ones. There's always debate on beef isolate versus whey versus casein, you know?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I do think this is one where if you optimize the diet and you get really good quality, so again, if it's grass-fed, pasture-raised eggs and organ meats and all these things, then you're going to have awesome protein and you shouldn't need to supplement. So I don't think in that case, so you're taking a gram of protein per pound of body weight and you're getting in really good quality proteins that have all the essential amino acids at high levels. So when you look at the amino acid profile of different foods, up at the very, very top is going to be eggs. So it's the closest to a complete protein, followed by meat and fish and dairy. And then it starts to drop off quite a lot.
Yeah.
So a lot of like grains, for instance, and plant-based proteins, they will generally be incomplete, where some of the amino acids are much, much lower. So some might be higher, some might be lower. Then you have to be more cognitive of like mixing different proteins together so that where one food might be low in some of those essential amino acids, the other is higher. And then when you combine them, you're going to get a much better effect. So if you have a grain and a legume, both together, one has low and some other is low and the other, but if you combine them in a meal, it's going to be better.
Peanuts, eggs, that's one that we used to talk about before.
Yeah, well, eggs are pretty good on their own, but peanuts, there's a couple of amino acids that just make it like even better. It's almost like the best combination of any two foods from an amino acid perspective in the world. But I'm thinking more things like, for instance, if you had oatmeal and you had beans and you put those together, that's going to really help. But once you're in the first class proteins, you don't need to worry about the combinations. If you just have a piece of salmon, for instance, you've got all your essential amino acids. Pretty good optimal doses.
Let's give people some real practical help here. Like you're in Whole Foods and Thurston, you're going to go get your protein for the week. What are you grabbing first? Bodybuilders and people in fitness, they love chicken because it's lean and because it's high in protein. Is that what you're reaching for first? Is it the steak? What's first on your mind?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, just very general. Like I said, the eggs, fish and meat, and dairy are all first-class proteins. So if you're consuming 150 grams, I mean, it depends obviously on your weight. So let's say you're 180 pounds weight-wise. You want to consume approximately, again, it depends what you're trying to do. If you're really trying to optimize and you're training and you want to gain muscle, you want at least a gram per pound of body weight. So then you want to focus on 180 grams of protein. Now, even for people looking for weight loss, this is very important because, and we covered this in the weight loss thing, as you lose weight, you want to preserve muscle tissue. You want to lose fat, not muscle. And then if you lose muscle, your metabolism can slow down. So if you want optimum metabolism, and also protein is more satiating. So for weight loss, it's very important too. Because some people are listening, oh, we're going into just muscle building, and I'm going to zone out. But no, this is really important for anybody trying to get into shape, because you want to preserve the muscle tissue, just burn the fats. Super, super important. So I mean, that I'm just going to say, okay, get the first class proteins in if you can. If you veer away from those foods, then you're going to have to get more into food combinations and get a little deeper. And that's where supplementation can come in as well for those people.
But if we're sticking to, high quality, pasture raised, eggs, grass-fed meats, that kind of stuff, we should be getting in what we need if that's our priority.
Yeah, and if you are looking to gain muscle and even possibly gain weight, and you're finding it hard to take in the full levels of protein, which it can be, because again, protein is satiating. So you may find it hard to chew through that much food, and that's where the supplements can come in and add in a protein shake.
Why do the powders?
Yeah, well, that's the big reason is because most people don't take in enough protein, and if you're struggling to get in that amount of protein, it's a lot easier just to drink back a protein drink to get in an extra 30 grams of protein.
It's pretty low calorie too.
And then it's going to be, you don't have to take in a lot of extra other calories as well to get the protein levels up. So that's then when you're diving into that area, you've got all these different protein powders and sources out there. So you've got whey protein, you've got casein, you've got beef protein, you've got pea protein.
The vegan, plant-based stuff.
Soy protein.
Can we kind of go through like those main 5 and just talk about what you would take and why? I know where you lean, so I'm just explain for people.
This is where
I think everyone thinks that they're all created equal. It's like, well, this is a protein powder, and it's the Vega Life. Sorry, not to blast on one brand or whatever it's called, Vega Life. Plant versus beef isolate or casein. People think they're all the same. So explain, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't like getting into this, because it's almost like politics or something. I mean, just scientifically, I'm looking at a few things, amino acid profile. So that's just, if you just almost didn't look through that and you just looked at amino acid profile, and when you start to look at that, whey protein is going to score pretty high. Beef protein, casein protein. The other ones are going to score a little lower, purely from an amino acid perspective, unless they are mixing different types, again, like same with the food.
Or adding.
So if you get like just, for instance, pea protein, soy protein actually in the amino acid is a little bit better. But generally, you're going to need to mix different proteins together. For instance, they might mix rice protein in with pea protein. Now then you're getting a better amino acid profile. So you got to watch that again. If you're just taking in just pea protein or other, it's better if they're combined with other ones to bring. And this is just purely amino acid profile. And there's something else that I'm going to talk about, because this is something where I probably diverge from the mainstream, because one of the big things I actually look at is what's called slow proteins versus fast proteins.
Oh.
So this is a big thing where I think they miss a lot. And there is some good research on this, but needs to be researched, I think, even further.
Yeah.
Because if you take in a protein and it only lasts a few minutes in your system, no matter how good the amino acid profile is, you may not absorb all that. It's because it's going through very quickly.
Yeah. And this is like whey protein. I think it's a 15-minute absorption or something.
Yeah.
Versus casein, which can be, 6 hours?
Yeah. Even, I think in the Boire study in France, they compared the two. And the casein protein lasted for, I think it was 7 hours, and the casein 15 minutes. So you need to take the
15 minutes.
Sorry, the whey, The whey was 15 minutes, the casein 7 hours. So you need to take it every 15 minutes to match the casein.
Right.
So the simple way, and again, this idea of an anabolic window after your workout is nonsense, because when you break down muscle tissue, it takes 48 hours at least for it to completely rebuild. So you want to have good amino acid levels for as much as you can for those 48 hours.
Yeah.
So it's not just a few seconds and it's over, right? So you really want to have protein in your system for a longer period of time, and then you're going to be more anabolic for a longer period of time.
Right.
So that's where casein, I believe, is much superior to whey protein, which again, a lot of people are going to say I'm wrong on that, but there was an interesting study in Australia where the police officers, I know this is a good study because sometimes they get so caught up in mechanisms and all of these things rather than outcomes. This was done with police officers in Australia where one group took whey, one group took casein, and then there was a control group. And the ones that took casein, they gained twice as much muscle, I think, got twice as strong compared to the whey. So it was big differences there. The other part of protein as well, and this is for people who are trying to get the protein intake, but they're either looking to recomp, so they want to gain muscle and lose fat, or for people who are looking for weight loss but want to preserve muscle. Then you also want to look at satiation.
Oh.
So for instance, casein protein is way more satiating. It'll make you feel fuller for longer as well. Whereas whey protein, you're going to be hungry again. Whey protein is also it's a lot of insulin in your system.
I thought that's what you were going to say.
Yeah. So there is that element. So again, for weight loss, now for young guys that are just looking to bulk up, I wouldn't be concerned about that. Yeah, because insulin's two-edged sword. It's great for muscle building, but it also can cause fat gain. So everything is a balance. But for weight loss, I would avoid that. I would be more taking the casein. Now, pea protein is more satiating as well, but again, you don't get that amino acid profile as good. So casein, if you handle dairy, casein would be my number one.
They call it a nighttime protein because it's such a long absorption rate. Do you need to take it at night? Can you take it throughout the day?
Yeah, you can take it. I mean, again, I find those things weird. I guess. See, whey protein came on, and it was like, oh my God, this is twice as good. I remember when it came, and this is way back in the 90s. I think it was EAS was the first one, or designer protein, I think was the first one that came out. We ordered a box full. We were in Ireland, and we were, oh my God, over in America, they discovered this incredible new whey protein. Quick, we got big boxes of it, and we were knocking this stuff back, waiting for the muscles to appear. And it never happened. It was like, we were so disappointed with the results of it. But whey is just a waste product. So the profit margins are huge because when you make cheese or whatever, whey is what runs off. It's usually just fed to the pigs or whatever, and then suddenly it's this miraculous protein. But look, I don't think whey protein's bad. I think it's good. There's great protein in there, good amino acids, but I just don't think it's the best. That's all. I think casein, I would go number one if you can handle that dairy protein. I mean, whey is dairy as well, but casein is harder to break down. So if you have digestive issues or something, it may not work for you. But if you can, it's fantastic. So,
would casein, would that be your number one on the list of protein supplements? Out of everything?
Yeah, it would.
So if you're somebody that can't take the dairy, what's next on your list?
Then after that, I would actually go, which is what I take myself, the beef protein. And I try to get a good grass-fed. In fact, I have.
Yes, you do.
This is one of the ones I'm taking at the moment, grass-fed protein powder. This one happens to be from Sweden. And it's just
shout out Sweden.
It's just sweetened with monk fruit extract, so there's nothing weird or funny in there. Vanilla bean powder, beef protein isolate, and monk fruit extract. Nothing else. So pretty clean protein. So I do like that. That would be my next best. And then I'd go whey, and then the other ones.
Okay. One thing I will say about beef protein, really amazing. Maybe consider using it in a blender, because it doesn't break down as well as dairy protein in like a shaker bottle. In my personal opinion, this is just a little tip for the folks.
I think it can vary, because funnily enough, I tried.
Some of them are different,
Yes, because the other one that I tried was even harder it was really clumpy, whereas this one actually broke down reasonably well for me, but
I just feel like one of the big deterrents for people for protein powder is that if it's gross to them, and so it's like, if it's gross, just keep drinking it, just put it in a blender. It'll help to chop it up more, and you won't have clumps.
I'm smiling because
I know you don't care.
I know.
That's the thing. Like, I don't care either, but people care,
Something I've noticed.
They won't get their protein
since I've been in this bit. I mean, I'm doing this now for 30 years, but people are getting fussier and fussier about everything, about tastes and stuff. And I'm like, I just want to have an amazing life. I want to have like incredible energy and great health, and everyone else is like, just all they care about is the taste and flavor and all these things. And I'm like, really, you're going to sacrifice your whole life just because something tastes okay for a few seconds? Anyway, I'm definitely going off on a tangent. I just can't get with that mentality.
You soft fools.
Like, you're not going to take fish oil, extend your life, have better inflammation, mood levels for your whole life because you might get a fish burp. I can't relate to that, but I don't know. That's the world we live in.
You're a special one, Thurston.
I don't know.
Some people like things to taste good. Us weak people, we're all the softies. Okay, so we're going casein, beef, then whey.
Yep.
Then.
And then I think pea protein after that.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I have a thing about soy that I just think there's a lot of negative things about. Now, I could be totally wrong, and some research says it's good and stuff, but there's something...
Is it true that it causes gynecomastia?
I don't know.
Apparently, look, I don't know. I'm not
there's
the
definitely hormonal... There's phytoestrogens in there. There's phytoestrogens in there.
Estrogen, right?
Yeah, and it can totally mess up hormones and all sorts of things. And even with... soy oil as well, which is dreadful. It starts to mess up even things with your brain. Like I've just seen a lot of stuff that I'm a little bit, I always have kind of attitude, if something's in nature and natural or closer to that, and has been done for thousands of years, it's less likely to have really bad negative effects. Anything that's new and different, I want to see enough evidence that it's not going to have any negative effects,
right?
And really well tested. So that's the way I kind of am in general about these things. So
I'm no scientist, but it could give you man boobs.
Yeah, well, I definitely would be. I need a very good reason to start taking that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many better forms or better ways to get protein. It's like, why would that be your number one?
Yeah, and how these things are produced and these fields of soy and what they spray and all, like you got to really check all these things right down to all.
Let me ask you this. So with like plant proteins, let's say I'm a vegan. I don't want to hate on vegans. Let's say there's a vegan and for whatever reason they choose to be vegan or vegetarian, and so they don't want to take the beef or the whey. Now, we know that the vegan stuff won't have as good of an amino acid profile. Would adding like an EAA amino acid complex supplement to that protein powder, would that be beneficial for them? Does it work like that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, amino acids. So obviously we talk about protein, and amino acids are protein.
Yeah.
So even though we're saying this is a little bit separate, but it's all connected.
Yeah.
But so if you're taking amino acids, so first of all, because we knew this like 20 years ago, because I actually worked in the supplement industry, so I do know a little bit about these things. I worked in it for over 10 years, and the big thing was BCAAs. Everyone's on their BCAAs.
Oh God, this is like the TikTok thing right now.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe people to this day are still saying, because all the research has shown.
Everyone drinks it while they're working out. They're like, you have to have your BCAAs.
But it's an incomplete protein.
It doesn't make sense.
On its own, it will do nothing. Yeah. Absolutely nothing. Now, okay, if you happen, there is lysine, what is it? Lysine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, and isoleucine. Is that the 3 BCAAs?
I'm gonna nod and pretend.
Okay.
I think there's more than that.
I should know this. No, there's just 3.
Is there just 3?
I know there's 3, yeah.
Oh.
But it's mainly the oh my God, I should know this. Lysine, isn't it? Is that the big one? Lysine, leucine, and isoleucine. Leucine or lysine? Now I'm totally confused. I should look this up. I should totally look this up.
On this one.
I do know this, but anyway, I'm having a bit of a blank.
He's a fraud.
I should be able to see it on this, actually.
It's okay. We'll just say.
But anyway, the
branched chain amino acid.
So there is one amino acid that's really good for anabolic effects. But if you just take that on its own, it's not going to help.
I think leucine. No.
I don't know why I'm blanking.
This will be a clip in itself.
I know this will be. This will be. If they want to show how terrible we are, this is the one to do. But look, anyway, whatever that amino acid is,
he's human too, folks.
It's really good. But you need it in conjunction with everything else, and it's only if that's low.
Yeah.
If you're taking incomplete proteins and then you take that in with it.
Lysine.
Yeah, lysine. That's the one, I think.
We worked through that. Well done.
Okay.
Well done.
So yeah, Ben helped us out there. So anyway, yeah, if you're low in that, or if you're taking an incomplete protein and you add that in, great. But this idea of just taking BCAAs and then it's just nonsense. It's been proven over and over again not to work. So you need
BCAAs not effective, EAAs effective.
Absolutely.
Good thing to add.
Yeah, for sure. So that's why this is something that I take myself. So free-form amino acids, all the 8 essential amino acids in optimal doses. That is awesome, because if you have any sort of digestive issues, and this is the big thing, you are not what you eat, you are what you absorb.
Oh.
So if you get in all your essential amino acids,
soundbite.
And they're free form, which means they don't require digestion. So you're going to absorb every ounce of that protein. That's fantastic. So again, that would be the ideal. Now, it'd be expensive if you're trying to take 200 grams of that a day.
Yeah.
But it really is. I mean, if you want to be absolutely sure. Plus, again, if you're vegetarian or you don't want to take as much of the other higher quality proteins, then this will be fantastic.
Yeah.
And would really make a big, big difference. So I do love.
If money weren't an issue, would you drink that with your meals?
a little story for you, Connor. I have all these stories.
Oh
right?
my God!
I don't think you know this
Hold
one.
on. Didn't you say there was a time? This is coming up from like 5 years ago. Wasn't there a time where you set an alarm and you would wake up in the middle of the night every hour to scoop down some EAAs?
Yeah, when we worked in the supplement business, we tried everything. We just experimented like crazy. So
this is amazing.
Yeah, we thought this like, wow, essential amino acids, free form, right? And we would take these things on the hour throughout, because we thought if we can get our nitrogen levels up, constantly getting a fuel of amino acids 24/7, that's got to be something pretty awesome. So we used to take them on the hour, every hour.
24 hours a day.
Well, we'd wake up not every hour during the night, but like twice I used to wake up with the alarm, and then I'd have the alarm set. The old Casio watches, is showing my age. You probably don't even know what they are. And it would beep every hour for me to take my amino acids.
This is before you understood how important sleep was.
Yeah, definitely. 80 to 100 grams of essential amino acids a day.
Yeah.
Of free-form amino acids, should I say. And I did that for 2 weeks. And the one thing I noticed was the muscles became so rock solid. Like it was like almost concrete. Like they would just be so rock solid. So that's definitely something we noticed was that. So we experimented.
Yeah, before like circadian rhythm was cool.
That was like, sleep when I dead attitude, which was terrible.
Lift weights and
so we definitely get some things wrong, and I was so wrong about the sleep thing. So when I was literally your age, but yeah, that was our attitude.
It's okay. That's all right. Okay, so EAAs are good. Add them in. Wake up every hour if you want. Maybe not. But yeah, take your EAAs. Cool. I feel like this is taking us into, so we talked about essential nutrients. This is kind of getting into like special nutrients or things we can add on top that we don't have to have. Let's talk about it a little bit.
Sure. So there's definitely, like the first one that would jump into my mind, something that's super effective, and again, I would recommend it to anybody who's working out, especially doing resistance training, is going to be creatine.
I knew it.
Yeah, it's definitely creatine.
Do you care which one, creatine monohydrate or?
Just the basic creatine monohydrate, because that's been studied the most, and all these, our formula is better than yours, it really doesn't make much of a difference.
Yeah.
The only thing that I will say, because I would be sensitive to my digestion, is that the only downside if you take creatine is for some people, if they're sensitive with their digestive system, that it can feel a little bit not great on the digestive system. And in that case, then you could take what's called Crealkaline. So it's just buffered, so it's absorbed slightly better. I'm not saying you're going to absorb it. Again, if you can take creatine monohydrate, I would recommend that. Yeah. Most people, that's what I recommend. It's cheaper, it's ubiquitous, you can get it anywhere, and it has a tremendous effect. So creatine straight away, amazing for increasing strength and muscle. So it's basically the energy. Creatine is like an amino acid anyway. And it's just brilliant. It's like the fuel source for the muscle.
It's a phosphagen creatine system, right?
Yep. So you're going to have...
Yeah, but people don't realize that it actually is one of our energy systems for power and strength.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
for short bursts.
And it's funny because they've done so many studies, and all they're finding are more and more benefits for older people, for cognitive ability, for women's health. All they're finding, because everyone's like, is there not loads of side effects? Because it's so effective, they almost thought it was like steroids.
No way. Yeah.
Because it's one of those things that really is. You take creatine after 2 weeks, you're going to start to notice it. You'll be lifting heavier weights. You'll see changes in your muscle.
Helps you hold on to more water in the
inside
muscle.
the cells where it's meant to be. Yeah. So it's not like water retention in the way that we think about it, but it's really
the only
good.
downside I've heard of ever, and I got this from Andrew Huberman, which isn't really a downside, is it has been shown to potentially cause hair loss. And it's not that it causes hair loss, it's that it can increase your testosterone a little bit, and then depending on your genetic disposition, you might convert more of that to DHT or not.
Yeah, but you're already doing the DHT conversion. Sure.
So it's not really a downside. It's actually a pretty positive thing to have testosterone boosted just a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm curious, is that a direct increase in, like, or is it because you've got more energy and you're training harder? Does it? I'm
Exactly.
actually don't know.
I don't know either. Yeah.
That. But anyway, but yeah, creatine. To me, it's almost like you're at a disadvantage not taking it. Like, why would you not take it?
Yeah.
Now, something I should mention: creatine is natural in food. You're going to get a few grams of creatine, maybe 3 or 4 grams of creatine in a pound of meat. So it's there in the food, but definitely taking it as a supplement.
People are really skeptical of it. Like a lot of women are too. I want to get your thoughts on that. I think it's just because it's so popular. It's probably one of the ones that's tossed around the most in bro culture. So everyone's like, creatine. And so, like, who should be taking it? Should women be taking it? Should guys? Is it just...
Everybody who's doing any form of resistance training. And even outside of that, because again, all this research shows great for elderly people, great for cognitive ability, great for women's health. So I can't see any reason not to take it. It's super cheap. It's ubiquitous. You can get it anywhere. It's going to have a tremendous effect. Like, why put yourself at a disadvantage? It's like saying, okay, I'm going to work out and I'm dehydrated and I'm not going to have a glass of water. So it's like, it's just energy that you need in the muscle. So you want to have optimum energy in the muscle when you work out.
Awesome.
So I just, it's one of those things, it's almost where I get to the point where by not taking it, you're literally putting yourself at a disadvantage. So absolutely, yeah, creatine is up there. While we're on the workout part, of course, sodium is going to be another one.
Sodium.
In fact, Huberman says his is number one.
I thought salty foods are bad for you.
Yeah, I feel like we could do so many different podcasts just on each of these things. But anyway, the Salt Fix, great book. You can go deep into that. But again, low salt is really, really bad. Yeah. Really bad for your health. And of course, really excess salt. But there's this kind of sweet spot is much higher than what most people might think in any research that I've seen. So, and again, when you're working out, and of course, Element, which has the sodium and a little bit of magnesium and potassium in there, for working out is super important.
Yeah, so, what does it do? Why is it important?
So sodium is literally, so when you work out, what you're doing is you're sending a signal for the muscles to contract. So it's like literally electrons, like electricity going in, and then the calcium is released, and then boom, the muscle contracts. So sodium is essential for that. And if you don't have enough sodium, that won't work very well.
So I think a lot of people are a little bit scared of sodium. They're like, hey, if you want to be healthy, don't eat salty foods. It's not good for your heart. It's bad for your blood pressure. Can you talk a little bit about the relationship of salt and potassium and the importance of that proper ratio?
Yeah.
To put people at ease, I guess.
Yeah, because so as far as I know, when you are going to take sodium, obviously, again, like everything has balances, and certain things work, like I talked about, for instance, vitamin A and D, they sort of work together. And then sodium, and minerals in general, but sodium and potassium. So you need, if you're going to just increase one without the other, then you end up with this, everything's out of balance. Whereas you keep them all within balance. So as far as I know, and I should double check this, but if you have enough potassium, that protects you from any of the issues with too much sodium. Now, again, I think it's way over, if you look at the research, and again, I should really refer to some other people that have gone much deeper, but in the Salt Fix book, you can get all this info. Where, there's one study that shows that if you take sodium, that it can temporarily cause your blood pressure to increase a little bit. But the net effect and overall, it doesn't seem to have much of a negative effect. Now, if you've got extreme hypertension, then you may need to be careful. Check with your doctor, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But
I don't feel like I feel like people take that as their number one intervention. It's like they'll eat all the terrible foods and not exercise. And like, hey, I'm being healthy tonight. No salt for me. I'm like, I feel like our priorities are a little out of whack there.
Completely. And the funny thing is, healthy people that are avoiding salt can end up, like I said, it could be way worse because then their sodium is way too low. Sodium is essential for life, essential for so many things. And again, naturally, we had large amounts of sodium. Think of what we did before refrigeration. How do we stop foods from spoiling?
Smothered in salt.
Everything was like loads of salt everywhere. and we were fine.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I always just go back to. Well, okay, is this really a problem if it's something that we took way more of in the past before we had all these health issues?
Sure.
So that's the way I kind of look at these things. But so I definitely think optimum levels of sodium and creatine is going to be incredibly important for working out, for training, for muscle tissue.
Awesome. So I think we had planned to go into a lot more detail on supplements, and there's so much that I think we're finding we're going to break this into a second episode. So we'll go ahead and shoot that, and we'll split these up. But to end this episode, before we go on too many, trails, let's talk about pre-workout. This is a big one in the exercise fitness world. What actually matters? What should we be taking before a workout that's optimal?
Okay. For those that are listening, I'm holding up a little espresso cup here, right? Because to be honest, the best pre-workout drink is just caffeine. Pretty straightforward, because it's going to give you a lot more energy for working out. So you're going to get a much better workout. Also, caffeine reduces post-exercise muscle soreness by 50%.
50%?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I've never heard that.
Yeah. So to be honest, before I work out, I just think, get some coffee in without having to spend a fortune on all these weird pre-workout supplements. There's very few things that I think actually, again, making sure your electrolytes.
I was going to say, we recommend
sodium
Element.
or the Element drink. I definitely think caffeine is good. We can talk about it another time. The only other thing that I from time to time, I'll do it as the nitric oxide things, which really help with the blood flow and the pump. So, but in general, look, I think bottom line, you don't actually need to take anything. I mean, the sodium thing it depends how long you work out for, because obviously you don't want to be dehydrated. So you got to be hydrated, and the minerals are the most important part. After that, like I said, little coffee.
Yeah.
And even that I think is going to be for most people. That's you don't need.
I also love pairing caffeine with a little bit of L-theanine, which is an amino acid, which really helps for focus. It just locks me in the zone. Another thing to consider doing there, I think Huberman goes into that, the relationship of partnering those two together. I think it's something that's also important that people should hear, because I think everyone gets so addicted to their different pre-workout drinks. Maybe consider not having to have it before every single workout. You don't want to get stuck in that place where you can't work out unless you have your exact formulated, pre-workout thing. We get a little bit too stuck in our ways, and so I think it can be good to,
Yeah, I mean, some of that can be placebo,
Sure.
Oh, if I'm not wearing my lucky shoes, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a terrible game or whatever, So sometimes it can be so psychological. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I just think have some coffee before you work out. A lot of these pre-workouts, it's just because they have caffeine in them anyway.
Yep.
And even when you look at the amounts of some of these ones, it doesn't even make sense, because it's not the right amounts for again, they'll say, oh, this is in it and this has been shown to be this, but the type and the amount is not the amount in the study. I see that so many times.
Are you familiar with beta-alanine?
A little bit.
Me too, a little bit. That's one that people are really into right now. So for people that don't know, it's in a lot of pre-workouts. It's what makes you itchy when you work out. But apparently does some really good stuff. We could go into that later too. Maybe do a little research.
Yeah, I think it's very specific in how it works, and depending on the type of workout and whether you're doing supersets or resting in between, it may have no effect, and for some people it may have some effect. So it's one of those ones, again, I love ones that are just clear-cut, like creatine. It just works. It works. It works. A lot of these other ones, and I've tried so many for HMB and all these other ones, and at best it's very marginal.
Let me ask you something really quick about creatine. Do you need to take it before your workout? Does it matter? Dosage and when?
It doesn't matter when you take it, because it actually takes a number of days. In fact, it could be a couple of weeks before it builds up in your system to have the right amount. So it's not something that you just take it and you've got it in your system 5 seconds later. I wish it was, but no, you have to build it up, and that's why a lot of the supplements say, "Oh, load up 4 times the dose for 5 days." Yeah. Now you won't get any better results long term but obviously you will have more, it'll just kick in quicker.
Yeah.
So I just generally say, look, take 3 to 5 grams every day.
And just keep it in the system.
Just take it. You're going to have optimum doses at that point. Yeah. That's fine.
Awesome.
So, yeah, don't worry about it.
Cool. Well, this has been a fun conversation. Well, let's leave it at that for now. Guys, we're going to come back with a part 2 of supplements because we realized halfway through this that there's just so much we want to get into, and we want to make sure we have enough time dedicated to it.
Yeah, and it is a fun area because it's one of those things where, you know, I'm big into obviously exercise, nutrition, other lifestyle factors, but taking a pill, a lot of people love that.
Oh yeah.
So at least if you do it, not because your metabolic health is terrible and then you got to be on medication, but you're going to take something that's actually going to have a positive impact. And I think some of those ones that we covered, again, I'm going to go back to that fish oil, phenomenal. And those 5 basic ones, I think just for everybody is going to be great and really, truly jump up your level of health. Something that you'll actually notice the difference, which is great. So that's where I kind of would just say, look, just do that. And it's so, like I said, easy. I mean, you just swallow some pills. It's pretty cool. But that nutrient density definitely makes a huge difference to your whole quality of life. And I can't stress this enough. You'll notice by even how you feel on a day-to-day basis, your focus, your concentration, your mood levels. Yeah. Huge. So, yeah, very simple. Again, if you could only ever come away with one thing from this is get the omega-3, EPA, DHA. If everybody was on that, that would have a great impact on all-around health.
Awesome. Get your supplements. We'll put out some resources, maybe send out some links of, where, the different brands that we recommend.
Yeah.
If you listen this far, thank you.
Yeah.
You're probably one of our moms, but we appreciate it. But yeah, if you listen this far, thanks. And we would just ask, please like and subscribe, whether you're listening on podcast or watching on YouTube. And we will see you guys next time on the Resistance Podcast.